Hi, we're Mark and Kitty Cheney, and in today's video, we're going to cover step 4, review weaknesses. Basically, how we got ourselves in this overweight situation. Yeah, and how previous diets have failed us.
Yes.
And also, we're going to go over
Solutions.
Successful solutions.
The solutions we found to those weaknesses.
Okay, that sounds great. So why don't you kick this off?
So with how we got into this overweight situation, it started off with emotional eating. That was big, especially for me. I love chocolate. I am absolutely a recovering chocoholic. I love ice cream. I love candy. I love all of that. And if you can combine it all, oh my goodness. But that was how I would deal with my emotions. When my emotions got too much, too heavy, and I just couldn't handle them, chocolate and candy and other sugars would help to numb those emotions so that then they were at a level that I could handle, that I could process. That's very common out in this world, especially for us women, that we turn to chocolate or other sugars to numb our emotions, just because then it brings it down to a level we can handle. And the problem is there's a side effect, there's a consequence of that, and it winds up on our waistlines, as mine did. And so I learned...
Well, mine too. I mean, I ate there right along with you.
You did. It's
yeah.
True. I would typically start us off on the emotional eating.
Or I would suggest something. And
yeah, okay, that happened too.
Trying to help the situation, not knowing I was hurting the situation.
It helped in the moment, short term.
True.
Anyway, so as a solution, we learned how to clear our negative emotions, how to process them, how to handle them better. And so the steps that we have for you to share with you is called black and colored journals. So a colored journal is what you're typically used to. It's a journal that you write all the wonderful things that happen in your day. A black journal is where you write all the negative. And so black journals, we tend to call them that they are poisonous, that they are toxic. You don't want to touch that stuff.
Not to be read by other people.
Not to be read by others.
My deepest, darkest thoughts. Or scribbles in my case.
Tends to be the darkest, yes.
Yeah.
And so a black journal is where you write all of the negative thoughts, all the things that you kind of secretly want to say to someone about someone, but don't, because that's just nasty. When you dump those negative emotions on someone else, it just hurts them. And we don't want to hurt our loved ones at all. So we dump that negative nasty into a black journal. And I literally went and bought a black journal. It was black. And it had a little rubber band around it to kind of keep it secured, and I could trust him not to read it. He didn't want that toxicity in his brain anyway.
Not even a temptation.
Nope. So I would write all the negative nasty, all the nasty things I was thinking in my head, but I was too nice to say, or too thoughtful to say, or just thoughtful in general.
You were less Shakespearean than me.
Yeah, so all the nasty.
Shakespearean insults, you know.
Yeah. All the nasty goes in the black journal. And then once you've cleared out that toxic, nasty waste, then you move on to the colored journal and you write all of the positive, all the good things that you can see happening in your day. Because if we focus on the negative, all we see is negative. But if we clear that negative out, then we can focus on the positive. And there's a lot of positive happening in our days, a whole lot. We just have to choose to look for it. So I would write all the positive in my colored journal, and that would help me to see that positive. You can treat that as a gratitude journal. You can treat it as a normal journal of all the good things that happened. You can treat it as I would do for a while, hopes for tomorrow. I would write 10 gratitudes for today and 3 hopes for tomorrow. That was awesome as well.
And that's what worked for you. For me, yes. It was more of a spin journal. I would take the negative stuff and I would spin it to a positive. I didn't believe any of it, but I went through the process anyway because I wanted to believe it. I wanted to go through and create that habit. And so even if it wasn't true at the moment, I was speaking it into existence so it could be true. And so that's what I used the colored journal for to start off with, and then it developed into what it was meant to be. But yes. Sometimes us guys, we don't want to do that. We don't want to confront our emotions. And so I just gamified it and started off as a spin journal.
That works. The next step for clearing out your emotions as a solution to emotional eating is called write and burn, where you write down all the nasty. Sometimes I would use this as I would try using the black and colored journal, and it just felt like too much, too toxic, even for that black journal. I would write it down on a totally separate paper, and then I would go out to the fire pit and burn it, because that stuff had to be destroyed now. It just needed to go away. And incidentally, on those black journals, I would never go back and reread it. That's just putting it back in my mind. It needed to get out.
Yeah.
But when it needed to go immediately, I would write it on a separate paper and go out to the fire pit and burn it. It just needed to go now, very fast.
And I had some stuff that was so toxic that it didn't just need to have a match put to it. I took the torch, totally incinerated it to dust.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, and that was cathartic. That worked.
It is, yeah. Sometimes I would take my paper, crumple it up, rip it apart, throw it down on the ground, stomp on it, and then throw it in the fire pit. Whatever you need to do to get the negative emotions out, just don't dump them on somebody else, and don't eat them. Either way, it's either toxic to them or toxic to you. Just get it out somewhere else, like a black journal or the fire pit. Either way, it works. And next you want to, or step 3 is talking to trees. You can go and, trees are amazing. Trees are natural. Their entire process, their entire way of being is taking our poison, the carbon dioxide that we breathe out. They take our poison and they process it and turn it into what's good for us, oxygen. They do that just by their very existence. Well, they can do the same with our emotions. They are well rooted in the ground. You're not going to knock them over. You're not going to knock them out with your negative like you would your sweet spouses. So you can,
siblings or children
siblings or anybody else.
Family member.
You can share that negative with a tree. They are rooted in the ground, and they share their leaves, their branches up to heaven, and they will process that. They're just fine. And that was very cathartic for me to go. I had a favorite tree down the street. I would go sit there and talk to that tree sometimes, and it would help me process my emotions. And by the time I came back, I was feeling better. And so you might find a favorite tree friend to talk to. Those work really well.
Yeah, these are just some of the solutions or some of the ideas. There's a lot of stuff out there you can use. Find out what works for you. And
yes. So that was our first problem that occurred, our first issue that contributed to our gaining the weight. Next one was an inconsistent routine. Oh my goodness, I have struggled in my life with inconsistent routines. I would I lose track of time easily. Mark keeps track of time without even trying. I lose track even when I'm trying. So I would prepare meals late. I mean, we would eat at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and we're starving and hungry, and we would go with the instant prepackaged meals that are not all that healthy for us. And I would be snacking while preparing the meal, all that stuff. I would forget to take foods with me. All the problems that come with an inconsistent routine.
Well, even when you did take foods with you and you took the granola bars.
Yeah, they were the sweetened ones.
Right. You thought that you were still being healthy.
Yes.
You know? So, I mean, sometimes we deceive ourselves.
Sometimes we
when
do.
We're trying to do good.
Yeah. Granola sounds healthy.
Well,
but anyway.
It's granola. Come on.
So as a solution to the preparing foods late, we leaned into Mark's natural strength. And his natural strength is staying on schedule and staying on time. He does it without even thinking. So for us, we looked at our weaknesses and our strengths. That was my weakness. It's his strength. We leaned into his strength of time. I would prepare a weekly menu, and
that was your strength.
That was mine. Planning. I'm good at planning.
Yeah, you're good at planning, and you're good at creating a systems and process. And then I was good at making sure that they stayed on track, time-wise.
Absolutely. And so I would prepare that weekly menu and the grocery list. And even one extra little step, we signed up for grocery delivery. Oh, I didn't think that would be as amazing as it was, but it was amazing in how it helped me. Because I could last minute at 11 o'clock at night go, oh my goodness, I forgot groceries for dinner tomorrow, for dinner all this week. And I could quickly throw together a grocery list on an app, and it would be delivered the next morning. And I didn't have to go to the grocery store. It was amazing. That would help a lot for me. And then Mark volunteered during this diet period when it was so important that we eat on specific times and that we eat very healthy, knowing that that was my weakness. He volunteered to make all the meals. That was huge. That really, really helped me, that we could lean into his strength in that regard.
Yeah, well, what we chose for our diet plan had an app that not only did we track our measurements and our weights, but it also had easy recipes. Just talking about, simple stuff.
Yes.
Nothing complicated, nothing that a guy couldn't do. Any guy, seriously. A guy, all thumbs in the kitchen, still could do this.
Yes.
In my opinion, and it took 15, 20 minutes to make a meal, and it kept us on track and kept us on the diet, simply because I took that off her plate, because you would get focused in, previous to this diet, you get focused in on something and you wouldn't go to fix a meal until you were hungry, which then also meant that you just want something quick and easy because you were already hungry.
Yeah.
And some of the meals that we used to cook were pretty elaborate, and it could take an hour. And now what do you do in that hour? So now you're eating while you're cooking, type stuff. So I just took that over to help alleviate that and take the stress off of you and keep us on track.
And I would lean into comfort foods in the past that were high in fat, high in carbs, and these simple, healthy recipes really helped. So having an app with this diet that was provided for us that had healthy recipes that were simple, that resolved that piece of the comfort foods. And the next one Mark had already mentioned is I would last minute grab granola bars as I'm heading out the door, or I would forget even the granola bars, head out the door, and then an appointment took longer than I thought, or somehow the schedule changed and I don't have food with me and I'm feeling like hungry, starving.
And Arctic Circle's sweet potato fries.
Oh, love those. They're so yummy.
If you call me from Arctic Circle, I'm going to be a little late coming home.
Oh, so much fast food. And that, of course, fast food contributes to gaining weight. And so that was another challenge. But we resolved that one. Our solution for that was the prepackaged healthy snacks that came with this diet. I made sure to have some in the car all the time, some in my purse all the time. I just kept a stash of them. They didn't have to be refrigerated. They didn't have to be prepared. I just had to make sure they were there. That I could do. And the diet that we chose only requires preparing one meal per day. So I didn't need a meal when I'm out and about. I had all these snacks, and then we had one meal in the evening that Mark prepared. So that's how we resolved that problem of an inconsistent routine that contributed to our weight gain. The next problem we had.
Well, you got a really good baking hobby, and I mean, so much so, I'll just tell you guys this. She's a professional cake decorator. She has taught Wilton, and she's done, 2-3 dozen wedding cakes that are just phenomenal. And, so if you ever knows about leveling a cake, that means there's cake scraps. And there's royal frosting, and there's deliciousness at every turn.
And cookies
and cookies and pies and all that stuff. But
yes.
You were a cake doctor, so the cakes didn't taste just like Costco cakes. They were really good, and so it was really yummy. And
we all ate way too much.
And we've done much less baking lately.
Yes. So my hobby of baking and that I was good at it most definitely contributed to our weight gain. I would eat because it was there. Mark would eat it because it was there, and it was yummy. And I, in my old habits, I would eat half the batch of cookies I had made just because it was there, and yummy. But
now we still do our baking, but our neighbors benefit from her skill.
Yes. So when I feel the urge to bake, number one, I do much less baking. I have found other hobbies to do. I don't do the baking near as much, but when I do, I still honor that I feel that desire to bake, and our neighbors benefit. We just plate it up immediately and give it out to the neighbors that night, and they all love it. And we don't have to eat as much because we never had to, but we don't eat as much because it's not here. It's not here tempting us.
Well, this diet helped teach us a different relationship with food, and that's why we call it fueling instead of a meal. And we found that it was easier to say no to these things. That we could still bake them, have one,
or none, multiple
and
times,
call it good.
Yeah.
And but they were able to share that with others.
Multiple times during the diet, we would bake up a whole bunch of things. We'd have kids over helping bake with us, and it would all leave the house and we would have none. That was pretty cool. So that is our list of how we got into this overweight situation and the solutions we had for it. Next is our list of how previous diets failed.
Ooh.
And that one starts off with you, honey.
Yeah. Okay, so there was one time that I just started drinking more water, started taking in more lemons and limes, and get my pH balance. Remember the pH balance diet? Yeah, that one, I had some success with that. The next one was HCG. So that's something that you produce naturally after giving birth that helps you shed the weight that you gained from being pregnant. And so I was on that diet, and I was able to drop 40 pounds or so, but I never kept it off because the HCG did its job, but the meal plan was really difficult, and also staying on maintenance was difficult. And so after that, I mean, it did take another 10 years before I went right back to that same weight. But still, I was still, every year I was a little bit heavier and a little bit heavier. And then you half tried it.
I did. Half tried.
Yeah. And you didn't have much success, and you were frustrated with that. And
so solo dieting, where Mark was doing the dieting on his own, that was one of the ways that our previous diets failed. He tried it. I wasn't on board. I was still cooking my old comfort foods. I was still enjoying sugars. This was his thing that he was doing. It didn't work. Didn't work very well at all. So our solution for that was we waited until I was ready.
Well, there was that time where we did decide on a diet together. We bought 4 or 5 recipe books on this diet. It's a very popular diet plan. And that didn't work either. But
it was too complicated.
It was too complicated. We were trying to do it together. So when we were researching, and why we decided on this particular one is because it solved a lot of our problems that we had.
It did.
And it made things easier. There was an app for that.
Yes.
Yeah. And there was support, and there was an accountability group, and there was a coach.
A lot of things.
Yeah.
A lot of things made this diet program work better for us.
But you and I being ready to do it together.
That was huge.
That was huge.
And I think previous times that we did do it together, it was more because you really, really wanted to. And I'm like, okay, fine, I'll do it with you. This time I was leading the charge. I'm really ready. And you're like, you're ready? Okay, let's do it together.
Oh, yeah, you had your phone out and you ordered the stuff. I mean, that's how ready you were.
I was ready.
It was waiting for us when we got home.
I was truly ready. And so doing it on when we're both fully on board, that was huge.
So I had a running mate.
Yeah.
Which I always find is successful. And we weren't competing with each other when it came to this. We were all supporting each other. So there wasn't this competition. But we were able to do it together. And support each other, and that was also another key factor in the success.
Yes, it was.
It also removed a lot of the inconveniences. There wasn't too much prep work. The one simple meal per day, the special foods and recipes.
Previous diets, that one that was too complicated required way too many
arrowroot. Foods. I mean, that's for starch, but it also is a spice, so it's like, that's interesting.
There's so many spices we have, and random packages we had left.
So we got to stick with our common ingredients.
Yes.
Yeah, the easy to find stuff. We didn't have to go off to some specialty granola store. I don't know what to call it.
Specialty health food store.
Health food store, thank you.
We could get everything at our normal grocery store. We could stick with foods we were comfortable with, that we already knew how to prepare, all of that. So the inconvenience we included, there was too much prep work on previous diets. There was special food and recipes. And we addressed that with the one simple meal per day.
And then everything else was prepackaged, which the best part for you, chocolate.
Yes, there's chocolate in this diet.
You had the granola bars, but they were specific. They were chocolate. Or some variation. They had the fudge, and they had the chocolate chip, and the peanut butter, and delicious stuff. Yep.
And there's hot chocolate, and chocolate pudding, and chocolate brownies, and chocolate shakes.
Well, chocolate smoothie. Yeah. So
I got my chocolate anyway, but in a healthy form. So our next problem that caused previous diets to fail was there were few grab-and-go options. there just weren't very many. We had to prepare all this stuff.
Yeah.
And so I had to run out the door, didn't have time to prepare, and I would go back to those sweetened granola bars that didn't work. Mm-hmm. And so our solution for that was the case of prepackaged foods, these prepackaged snacks that would just arrive monthly mm-hmm. on this particular diet program that we chose. And it did include a lot of chocolate. And so that made it really work for us, that there were grab and go options that I would just keep in my car and in my purse.
Yeah, and in this particular diet we're on, mm-hmm. it was what they call a 5-in-1. So we had 5 fuelings mm-hmm. and 1 lean and green. Mm-hmm. And so basically we were eating starting off like every 2 hours. We eventually moved it up to 3 because we got into the routine. Mm-hmm. We can go longer between fuelings. But I was the one who kept us on track. So because of my time management stuff, mm-hmm. I would just show up and put a fueling on your desk or hand one to you as you're going out the doors mm-hmm. and make sure you had one while you were out. Mm-hmm. And so that just made it very convenient.
Yes. So the fourth thing that caused us to fail on previous diets was the inconsistent routine. Mm-hmm. And so you showing up with fuelings because you naturally stay on a routine, that helped a lot. Mm-hmm. And then my smartwatch, I got a smartwatch, and that helped me when he wasn't around.
And that would drive me nuts, but that works for you.
It works for me. Oh, it works beautifully for me. I have an alarm every few hours that tells me what to do when.
You have an alarms for your alarms, so it's like I get up early in the morning because you have an alarm that gets you up early in the morning.
Yes. If a routine is inconsistent, if it's hard, if it's confusing, we would just go back to old habits. So the fact that this one was simple and easy to follow, that he could naturally follow it, and that I found a tool to help me follow it, that worked for us. The next problem we ran into, the last problem that we ran into that caused previous diets to fail, was no maintenance plan. We would get to the end, and there's no way to keep it off. We'd go back to our old habits.
They had a maintenance plan. There just wasn't the continued support and accountability for it, and it also was complicated. Yeah. You still had to do the specialty stuff. Mm-hmm. You had to prep everything. It's like you'd spend all day Sunday prepping for your meals the rest of the week because you didn't have time to do it during the week, but you wanted to stay on plan.
But I have too many things to do on Sunday. I don't have time for that.
Yeah, there's a lot. Even if you don't have kids, there's a lot.
There is.
So, so that was the big thing is we needed something that we still had the coach, we still had the accountability group, we had phone calls, we were still on a maintenance plan, and then we were able to add stuff to it to incorporate so we could stay where we wanted to be.
Yes, the fact that this particular diet program came with all those features, the coach, the
Healthy Habits books.
The Healthy Habits books, and a specified, whatever, plan for transitioning into maintenance. Yeah. That really helped. And
because you didn't instantly go into maintenance. It was like a 4-week process. And then you slowly work your way back into it. So it wasn't anything that was going to shock your system.
Right.
Yeah.
And that gradual shift with a coach there to advise us really helped. So those are the tips that are the challenges we ran into and the solutions that we found for them. Hopefully you can pick and choose through that and find some solutions for you as well as you move forward in your weight loss journeys and or any other goals.
And then, obviously, at the bottom, click like and subscribe. And then if you have any comments, go ahead and put comments in there because you're probably asking, what is this diet you're on? Well, understand, we're intentionally not saying it because the key to this diet is a coach. It's not something that you can just go off and maybe you could go off and do it on your own, but if you want success, you need to have the coach, you need to have the books, the accountability, and then you need to have the fueling plan on all that, just to make sure that you have the most success possible available to you.
Yep. And we're happy to connect you up with our coach.
Absolutely.
Because we're not health coaches.
No.
But we can connect you up with a fabulous health coach.